Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. My name is Kai. Today I want to talk to you about the biggest threats to Bitcoin going forward. Now myself, I was a little bit late to all the Bitcoin craze. Nevertheless, investing a few years ago, I really still had a really nice return. However,
when I see my portfolio, I wish I was upside down.
The price has been correcting massively and since a long while now has actually been moving sideways, not moving up, not moving down, and really very little price action. So now with a lot of the hype and gains gone, a lot of the beginner investors actually sold their funds because they got nervous. And while of course there are bigger macroeconomic factors at play, that's not just the fault of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. There are some major threats to cryptocurrencies, for Bitcoin in particular, out there. Starting off with the first one, and that is regulation. Now generally speaking, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular is still considered a very young investment vehicle and asset class. That's why there's still such a lack of regulation out there. A lot of countries don't have any proper regulation or taxation in place. Even in the US, there's still a discussion, is crypto a security? Is it a commodity? Is it an asset? So even the US hasn't really figured it out. Is the SEC dealing with it or the Fed? There's still so many questions to be answered. Or with regards to taxations, Portugal in recent times was seen as one of the leading crypto-friendly countries in the world, with pretty much no taxation on any gains if you sold your cryptos in Portugal. However, now recently actually they came back and changed it and added taxation. So you can see it's still pretty much the Wild West out there with regards to regulations and taxations. One thing that is for sure though, countries are not sleeping because they see the huge volume of money going through cryptocurrency and Bitcoin transactions every single day. And by not having regulations and taxation laws in place, they're obviously missing out on a lot of money for the country. Even in the European Union, they're very much pushing forward and advocating standardized regulation with regards to cryptocurrencies across Europe. Of course, this can be very good because having more clarity can also lead for more people to invest potentially into cryptocurrency, because right now there are a lot of question marks. So having a clear framework in place can attract new investors and institutional investors. However, that's only the case as long as it's favorable. We've seen quite a number of countries completely banning cryptocurrency transactions and exchanges. So if this happens to you and you live in a country that bans cryptocurrency, you're gonna have a problem. So upcoming regulations is definitely one of the biggest question marks and potential risk to Bitcoin in particular. Secondly, we have the environmental concerns, especially in the situation we all find ourselves in with the energy crisis in Europe and across the world actually, and more people becoming environmentally conscious. There always has been a big backlash against cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in particular, because Bitcoin now is one of the last cryptocurrencies that follows a proof of work model. That basically means that miners need to validate transactions, and that requires computer processing power, which in turn requires a lot of energy. It's actually hard to imagine that it takes so much power to do those calculations, but depending on the publications or statistics you're reading, it actually equates to an entire annual power consumption of a country like Chile. So while this threat and concern is nothing new, it's always been there and people have always been pointing the finger at that. Now in times of energy crisis and energy preservations, where even huge established Western countries are switching off lights at night, reducing the loud AC and heating you can use in summer or winter. I mean, that's reality, right? So now of course people get even more agitated when they see the power consumption Bitcoin takes. And that comes also at the time when Ethereum moved away from proof of work, previously taking a lot of power, to now fully being on proof of stake, which reduced their power consumption by 99%. So basically now Bitcoin as the biggest cryptocurrency out there, and in line with those new regulations coming, there is an increased pressure to get away from the proof of work model, which would of course hugely impact Bitcoin, because right now it's one of the unique selling proposition by having a proof of work model that is safer and more secure than many other models, including proof of stake. The third point are scams and frauds. Now don't get me wrong, scams and frauds have always been existing. They exist in real life when people try to scam you on the street. They existed online when people try to skim your credit card details. They always exist and probably always will exist. But with cryptocurrency, it's so much easier because it's more anonymous. If people steal your cryptocurrency, because it's more anonymous, it really is a perfect target, and people often store a lot of money in their wallets. So when they get hacked, they can easily, quickly and anonymously drain the wallets and nobody ever finds them. Apparently over the last 5 years, already $14 billion have been stolen in total crypto value. I mean, it's a mind-boggling number. Moreover, crypto and Bitcoin are also tied to legal activities. On the dark web, for example, you can transact and buy illegal things and substances, and you could pay with cryptocurrency, and all of it is mostly anonymous. And that's another reason the government is very concerned and obviously wants to put an end to this. And once again, this comes back to having more regulations in place. And what I think is the biggest threat of all of them, and that's CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Now these are basically like a normal currency from a respective country, a US dollar, a euro, a yuan, but in a digital form, which sounds really nice, right? Not to have to carry physical money with you, but of course that comes at the risk of being fully trackable and traceable. The government basically will see every single transaction you will be making in their currency. Now they may say they put privacy measures in place, etc. But in reality, if it's online and digital, technically they will be able to trace you. And that's why we're seeing countries like China already pushing their native currency, the yuan, into the digital yuan. That project has already been running for quite a few years and they will only continue to push this further. In fact, there are now over 104 countries working on their own version of a CBDC. Now imagine in a couple of years from now, once the US adopts their own CBDC, the digital dollar, do you think they will allow other currencies to compete with them? Now they can easily sanction other countries because most transactions are done in dollars. If in the future other countries could circumvent such sanctions by not using digital dollar, but instead some anonymous cryptocurrencies, I think the US would really have a problem with that, and they're gonna fight that. Also to better track the citizens and businesses, and more importantly, maximize the tax revenue from those transactions. Because right now, without the regulations, there's a lot of cash transactions that basically remains in the dark and the government doesn't get a cut from it. But once everything is digital, done through the digital dollar, the government can actually put smart contracts in place that automatically deducts their tax share from the transaction. Now guys, I know what you might be thinking, what the heck is this guy talking about? He always is so bullish about Bitcoin and he holds that much money into Bitcoin. Is he crazy? Guys, as with anything in life, there are always pros and cons, there are always certain risks, especially the higher the rewards, the higher the risks usually are. Now while I do think these threats are really serious and we have to consider them and closely monitor, I don't think it's time to panic and run away selling your Bitcoins or cryptos. Right now the biggest impact on the pricing action of Bitcoin and crypto at large is the overall macroeconomic environment, which looks pretty bleak. However, I think going forward into next year, markets will recover and prices in stocks, commodities, ETFs, and of course cryptocurrency will go up again. And that's why for myself at the moment, I will not be buying any more. I already have quite a big position in Bitcoin, almost one full Bitcoin, which was always my goal. So I will just make sure I will achieve that. And then I will sit back and kind of monitor the markets and see where it's going. And if I see any of these threats becoming even more serious and very obvious, such as cracking down on proof of work model, I will be definitely very likely to be selling my Bitcoin. So I guess only time will tell. We will see what the future brings. I'm always bullish, I'm always positive. I do think Bitcoin will be here for many, many years to come, unlike many other cryptocurrencies. That's why my majority is in Bitcoin, because I think it's an asset similar like gold, which is not competing to be a CBDC in the future, but more like an inflation hedge or long-term asset. But I do think a lot of the other smaller cryptos are gonna have a tough time in the future, especially once the CBDCs really roll out to the mass markets. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, it means the world to me. As always, stay healthy, get wealthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.